Good morning, Sunnyvale. Hope everyone's doing well. We'll get started in just a second. Happy Friday. Hope that everybody enjoyed the short week. Morning. Morning, Shane. Welcome, everyone. Started in just a second. Morning. If you have a question, please add it to the comments and I'll get to it as quickly as I can. Hopefully today, if not today, then next week. Okay. Good morning, Sunnyvale. Welcome to my weekly virtual office hours and welcome to hopefully a light week for most people. You know, the week after Labor Day is a little bit slower usually. This week's early artwork is actually from Rumble Boxing. So it's a new exercise studio on TAFE Avenue. This mural just went in at their location. So if you walk by, you can see it on the wall, but great to see Steph Curry there. And on the front of the cable car that you'll see in the corner, there's actually, it says Sunnyvale. And so it has a few at least call outs to Sunnyvale, but Rumble Boxing just opened a few weeks ago. They actually have a good, I think last one sometime, but they have a fairly good membership already, and they'll have a ribbon cutting and grand opening coming up in October. So if you get a chance, definitely drop by and see them. You know, there's supposedly lots of people already are members, and happy to see, you know, a new business coming into Sunnyvale, and especially when they're adding very interesting artwork to their location is always fantastic too. Let's go ahead and get started. Good morning. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thank you for joining me again this week. It's been a relatively slow week, you know, in comparison. You know, this is the 176th installment of my weekly office hours. So I hope everyone is doing well, staying healthy, enjoying, you know, the beginning of fall. Still fairly nice weather, still kind of warm days. We've now reached 1,271 days since the March 16, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. You know, over 3 years ago, I converted my weekly, you know, office hours which was into this live stream address. And, you know, thanks to everyone who continues to join me, continues to watch this, continues to give me feedback. You know, people still say they enjoy hearing from their mayor, whether or not they're watching us live or watching this video delayed, some days, sometimes weeks. But you know, these addresses allow me to give you an update on what's happening in our city, what's some upcoming events, and of course, just answer some of your questions, you know, and allow me to reach a lot more people than I can in my weekly office hours in person. Thank you for allowing me to continue to represent you and work for Sunnyvale. Most Fridays, just like this today, I follow up this live stream address with in-person office hours on Murphy Avenue at Bean Scene. So definitely, if you would like to reserve 15 minutes or 30-minute time slot, you know, just email me at council@larryklein.com, and I'm sure we can find a time on my calendar. If you want to see my calendar, where I am and all that, you can always go to larryklein.com. It has a link to my Eat Sunnyvale webpage where I'm reviewing restaurants. It has news articles and, a link to these live stream addresses also, whether or not you're watching it on YouTube or whether or not you're watching it on Facebook. It's one of the easiest ways to kind of get the word out there. So now let's go ahead and talk about what's happened at the federal, state, county, and city level over the last few weeks. 2 Saturdays ago was the last Jazz and Beyond for the season. So East Side Funk came to Sunnyvale yet again. It's always good to see them, and they're a great group, and really enjoy having photos with the mayor, and we always get to talk. But so that was the end of our kind of summer series of music, our Wednesday night rock and Saturday night jazz. But looking forward to next year and hopefully even a longer season, but especially for our Wednesday night rock series, it'll be the 25th anniversary of our Wednesday night rock music. So looking forward to next year. And then 2 Sundays ago was Silicon Valley Pride, and it's Pride Month in August, but the last. I guess it's the last Saturday or last Sunday was Silicon Valley Pride Parade in San Jose. And so, lots of electives there, lots of people, dancing in the streets. And, it's not as big as San Francisco, but it's always good to be out there and celebrate Pride and, the diversity of Silicon Valley. So, it's good to be out there. There's a big if you get a chance, definitely go next year. There's a big fair at the end, so at Cesar Chavez Park, right downtown San Jose, and and the parade itself is relatively short. It's probably only 3/4 of a mile or so, but it's actually good to be out there. And I was walking with Supervisor Lee, and there were lots of other county supervisors and council members from Sunnyvale were there and joined me. And Supervisor Lee. So always a great event, and so happy to be there. And then last Tuesday, we had a council meeting, and we saw an appeal for 18 condominiums located on Crescent Avenue. So this was at the site of actually an old chicken farm. So it's a historic home that was built in the application actually preserved the home that was built in 1927, but then it tore down kind of a second home that was there that was built much later in the 60s, but also they tore down all kind of the metal structures where the retail business used to reside, and ultimately they'll be building an additional 18 condominiums. So, and it's a street that already has multiple apartments and condominiums and a senior living center. So it kind of fits with the street from that standpoint. And then council also appointed our new board and commissioners. So it's always good. And if you ever want to get more involved in the city, that's always a fantastic way to get involved. You can, when we do that on a quarterly basis, there's always positions that are open on different boards and commissions each quarter. The mid-year, the one that happens in the spring, the recruitment for the June appointments is always a little bit bigger, just because there are people ending their 4-year terms on a different board and commission. And so ultimately it's good from that standpoint that, we always have people interested in giving back to the city. Last Wednesday morning, we honored 8 new officers that had been promoted over the last year to a higher rank in public safety. And so, to me, it's really amazing. Our public safety department is really amazing. And it's always good to see, officers that are wanting to take on additional leadership. It was just fantastic to talk with them. And, one of the new lieutenants, his father actually graduated from public safety back in retired from public safety back in 2004, and the father, had mentored multiple multiple other captains, and had worked in a lot of different areas within the department. So some of our existing senior personnel had actually mentored underneath the father of a newly promoted lieutenant. So it was actually really interesting from that standpoint, meet the families and just honor the great officers that we have that are wanting to step up and take on additional responsibilities. And then last Wednesday afternoon, I was at Sunnyvale Community Services to honor their volunteers. And so this is their weekly, or this is their yearly volunteer event to honor all the hours that their volunteers put in for whatever help that they provide at Sunnyvale Community Services. There were people there that had done hundreds and hundreds of hours over the last year. And so it was good to honor them and join in on those festivities. Last Thursday morning, we had Sunnyvale's, so at Sunnyvale Community Center, we actually had the Years of Service breakfast. And this year we were honoring 178 city employees. I need a drink. For their outstanding and lengthy service to Sunnyvale. And this is, honoring certain anniversaries. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and even 30-year anniversaries with the city. So yeah, 21 people were being recognized for 25 or 30 years of service to Sunnyvale. And it's amazing, we're really fortunate from a city that we have, employees with such a wide depth of knowledge in their work, and a lot of them had moved, some of them had moved around in different departments and had different perspectives and new people in lots of different departments. Some of them had stayed in the same department for their entire career. So it was very interesting to talk to some of those, especially those that have been here so long, and seeing the city change and seeing how City Hall changes. And so great to honor them, and that's an important part of being able to attract people and then passing on that knowledge to our new employees. So thank you to all the city staff. We have a fantastic city, and you hear some cities are having tons of problems hiring people, and we're having some issues, but in general we're pretty lucky to see the number of people that really want to work in our city. Then last Thursday evening, I was at Muwekma Park with a lot of other residents. It was kind of a small business health event. So Yoga 6 will be opening a yoga studio in downtown later in the fall, but they had, let's say, a free class to kind of just bring people up to speed on what they're providing and kind of go through that. So I joined in on that class, and there was, another company that was doing healthy food there. So actually really good from that standpoint to meet some residents, as well as kind of support some of our healthy businesses. So definitely always good to do that. And there'll probably be some additional events coming up later this fall, especially with partnerships between Yoga 6 and Rumble Boxing. And we have a lot of great health businesses within the city. And so definitely out there as mayor and willing to promote them. And then last weekend, of course, was Labor Day weekend. So things were relatively slow. Of course, there are lots of barbecues around Sunnyvale, around the Bay Area. I went to, there's a South Bay labor event down in San Jose. There were multiple barbecues in Sunnyvale that I dropped by, and met some residents and said hello. But it was a good kind of more relaxing weekend. Monday, of course, was Labor Day, and city offices were closed, and kind of meant that this week was fairly slow. Although on Wednesday, of course, the California Secretary of Agriculture placed a quarantine on 112 square miles of Santa Clara County. And it's all because the Oriental fruit fly were detected. I think there were 8 flies between Santa Clara and Sunnyvale. that were found. So the quarantine areas includes all of Santa Clara, all of Sunnyvale, and portions of Cupertino, Milpitas, Mountain View, Campbell, San Jose. If you take a look at the map, I posted about it yesterday. The big thing is the quarantine will last until June of 2024 and maybe longer. And, vector control urges residents to not move any homegrown fruit and vegetables from your property. They're still, they may be consumed or processed on your property. So if you're juicing them, freezing them, cooking them, that's all fine. And then of course they're edible because you've killed any larvae that might be in those, but the Oriental fruit fly is really an invasive pest and, poses a significant threat to California's, agricultural industry. So, the city, the state is taking it very seriously. They're currently doing a similar quarantine in Contra Costa County. But, Oriental fruit flies are a little bit larger than the common house flies, and they lay their eggs under the skin of mostly fruits, but fruits and vegetables are possible. And when the eggs hatch into larvae, they tunnel through the fruit and then make it unfit for human consumption. But so lots of things going on that will be changing from how farmers markets are run, people, even how we food cycle. So if it's homegrown fruits and vegetables, you should actually double bag them and put them into the garbage as opposed to food cycling them. So lots more updates that will be coming from a city standpoint. But yeah, it's not a good thing. And there'll be efforts. And I had several questions from different people from between emails and people that I met with over the last few days, asking questions about what this means from a city standpoint, what this means from an operational standpoint. But I'll get to the questions in a few moments. Yesterday during lunch, I spoke with a commercial real estate group, and it was a meeting of the mayors. So it was I was joining the mayors for San Jose and Santa Clara to talk about our cities, and it was good to hear from other mayors about what's happening in their cities and kind of what challenges we have. I'm really blessed that definitely some of the issues that San Jose and Santa Clara have that we really don't have, or we have to a much lesser degree. They're talking about the mayor for San Jose, hiring more public safety officers is his number one effort, because he doesn't have enough police officers, he doesn't have enough fire. We have and not that we're not constantly recruiting, but in general, we're between people, officers that are currently going through the fire academy or the police academy, we're on track to be conceivably at our maximum 201 sworn officers sometime in the next 6 months. So looking forward to that, but you hear the issues of how much homelessness has hit San Jose, and just hearing some of the issues there. You can read the paper about all the things that are happening in Santa Clara from a legal standpoint and other battles that are happening within their city. So in general, Sunnyvale is in a fairly good place. So it was good to kind of talk about where we stand from a city and what we're moving forward, whether or not that's Moffett Park, the new Moffett Park specific plan, the downtown, the El Camino Real specific plan, and kind of what's happening with construction, what's happening with our city, and happy to kind of talk about what's happening here in our city. Always good from that standpoint, to kind of educate people on, Sunnyvale. We don't get enough, I'll say definitely we don't get enough press because we don't have as much drama as a lot of the other cities as far as that's concerned. And then last night, I welcomed 25 residents as they joined our new CERT training class. I've been a big supporter for CERT for many years, whether or not that was, before I got on council, I went through CERT to be better prepared in the community, but it's great to get that education, build that team, and then, ultimately becoming a CERT volunteer. You have a lot of opportunity to assist the city when they needed a little bit additional help. And, whether or not that's crossing guards when there weren't enough crossing guards, or especially during COVID, helping to do line management, giving out water, passing out masks, all those sorts of things, which we rely on those local residents to do. So, always happy to thank the CERT volunteers and welcome those new CERT residents that are going through the CERT program. So fantastic. It's about an 8-week program. It started last night, but we have usually three sessions a year. So there'll be another one coming up at the beginning of the year. Definitely consider that if you haven't gone through that program. And then, as I've said previously, I won't be focusing on weekly COVID numbers anymore, but just as an aside, California is seeing a kind of a summer surge from COVID, a new COVID wave, although it's hasn't reached the heights that we saw a year ago. But it is a very contagious strain of the virus that's going through, and the positivity rate has topped out about 14%. It's the highest since, I think, July of last year, July of 2022. But, from a public health standpoint, hospitalizations have increased, but not that bad. They're still far from the record heights, and so definitely we're seeing a slight increase, and there will be, vaccine boosters coming relatively soon. But, we're in the state and the county is still monitoring our waste systems, but definitely if you take precautions, if you're in crowds, wearing a mask is still recommended, especially for those that are, have underlying health conditions. But we'll see where the fall takes us, and COVID definitely is here to stay, or some version of COVID will be here for a while. So we'll see where the next few months go. I continue to spend a lot of time advocating on our city's behalf, at the county level, at the state level, at the federal level. Like speaking to, county vector control and contacting them earlier this week when the quarantine happened. But, we'll get into some of the questions and cover that a little bit later. Let me announce some of the upcoming events. So next Thursday, September 13th, will be the 20th anniversary of our community center and senior center. So if you want to come by, I think there's a luncheon plan. So I think that's that's posted. If you go to Sunnyvale recreational page, I think you can start signing up for that today, for that luncheon. But there'll be lots of events to kind of celebrate that 20th anniversary. And then we're just about 2 weeks away from the State of the City, and that's happening on September 23rd. From 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. there'll be speeches and the community awards and honoring our board and commission members. And then from 11 a.m. to about 12:30, 1 o'clock will be tours of City Hall. So if you wanted to have a tour of City Hall, if you want to ask some questions about all the details of whether or not it's the number of solar panels on the roof, or where the wood came from, or how the old redwood trees were repurposed, definitely come by. It'll be a little bit busy, definitely, since we still don't have all the parking that we were expecting to have. We finally have finished tearing down the old City Hall and the old annex and filled in a lot of the basements, but there's still work. It's still an active construction zone. So parking will be a little bit tight for that, between the library and at City Hall, but definitely it should be a good celebration, and always good to talk about, what the state of the city is and where we currently stand. And then as I said earlier, October 12th at 11 a.m., there'll be the ribbon cutting for Rumble Boxing. So I toured that facility yesterday, and really, really great to see. But that will be their big celebration. And then on Saturday, October 14th, it'll be Day on the Bay in Alviso. And there'll be a Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition ride from downtown Sunnyvale to Alviso. I'll be joining that. So happy to be out and biking and supporting that, supporting the county services at Day on the Bay. As for upcoming council meetings, our next council meeting is next Tuesday, the 12th. We'll start with a special order for Hispanic Heritage Month. And then we'll swear in our new board and commission members that we just appointed. And then finally, we'll be looking at awarding a contract for the planning for the Civic Center Phase 2. And that's basically what we're going to be doing with the main library. And from that standpoint, our main library, there's still a question on whether or not it is renovating the old library and doing an addition, or creating a brand new library, and what those costs are. So that award will ultimately do community outreach and do some initial designs on what that cost might be for the two different options for the library. So with that, let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. If you have a question, just add it to the chat. Multiple questions that I got on the quarantine. First, Cam asked, "Hi Larry, thank you for asking for questions. I read in the news about the Oriental fruit fly quarantine. It talks about what the people in the affected areas should do. However, it only mentions parts of Sunnyvale. My question is specifically, what parts of Sunnyvale are affected? Based on the map that I saw, it's pretty much all of Sunnyvale. Please help clarify." So yeah, I went through, and thanks very much for being reachable. So thank you, Cam. Thanks for the great question. It led me in a long effort of getting information and what that quarantine means for us. So yes, it is all of Sunnyvale. And when they said parts, it's basically all of Sunnyvale, and maybe the only part that might not be covered is some of the far, far north Sunnyvale that's out on the bay, where ultimately there aren't fruit growing, there aren't vegetables growing from that standpoint. But yes, it's all of Sunnyvale, and I've been working with the county vector control to get that press release updated, because yeah, it listed all of Sunnyvale. Well, listed only all of Santa Clara, and parts of Sunnyvale, parts of Cupertino, parts of San Jose. But ultimately it wasn't correct for even from that, because if you look at the map, it wasn't covering, it covers parts of Mountain View, it covers parts of Campbell. And so, definitely it's a lot bigger. The areas that are affected are a lot bigger than what the county vector control was actually covering. And so, I've been communicating to them to try to update and edit and re-release their press release, just to make sure that they're clarifying everything, because it's making sure that where there might be fruit flies, everybody's following what the requirements are. Jennifer asked, "What is the county doing to kill fruit flies?" So, during the quarantine, the California Department of Food and Agriculture will actually be placing bait on trees and poles near the areas where the flies were found. So they'll be coming through and not just having the traps, but trying to actually kill them, kill the flies from that standpoint. But yeah, you see the little green triangle capture, and that's how they found the fruit flies initially, is trying to make sure that they're finding them as quickly as possible and what the affected areas are. And so that's what they found, and they'll be putting out bait, which contains an organic pesticide, which kills the flies. And according to the county, this method is, of course, safe for people and pets. But definitely they will be doing an active effort to try to kill the flies. It's not spraying or anything of that nature, but it's actually just bait that's out there from that standpoint on areas where they have found the flies. Suzanne asked, will the quarantine affect our farmers market? So yes, it will ultimately change the operations for the market. It won't close them, which is the big thing. But it's kind of changing what's going to be done operationally. So a lot of the fruits and vegetables will need to be covered with a cloth or plastic wrap. And for people who've been in the city for multiple years, we went through this in previous years. And so this will help prevent insects from landing on them and conceivably laying eggs. Vendors will be required to bring, of course, fewer crops to the markets, as leftovers won't be allowed back on the farm property after being exposed to the market. So we'll see how that goes from an operational standpoint. They're still trying to figure out which fruits and vegetables the flies might be targeting, and conceivably, focus that on when we're dealing with the vendors at the farmers market. So definitely lots of questions as far as that's concerned, but it's a learning experience all over again, and we'll see how this affects our surrounding communities. Kathleen asked, do you know what types of businesses will be going into the Murphy's Law now that it's been sold? Yeah, so it's still going to be a bar, although I've heard it's going to be upgraded with more food options. So they're going to be a little more food focused as opposed to just being a bar, but haven't met the owners yet, and looking forward to talking with them and figuring out what's going on. Carrie asked, can the city do sunset movies in the fall as well? Since it gets dark earlier, more families could enjoy the event too, and we are usually blessed with warm evenings still into the fall. So yeah, I did talk to the head of library and recreational services. It probably won't be done for this year. It can't be done for this year, but they are already starting to plan for next year. And during that debrief, they're looking at adding additional parks, as well as conceivably going a lot later into the fall, which I know that there's several cities, I think, or at least one or two cities that I saw are starting sunset movies, I think just last week and going to the end of September. So we'll see where that goes, but I think it'll be a little bit longer next year. Wendy asked, we've lived here since 1994, and over that time, we've noticed that our care for the city trees is non-existent until one falls down in a storm. When will funding be given to proactively trim trees before they become a hazard? Our street trees lost many limbs over the last 2 years, and will lose many more as as they're very full and heavy. Please provide funding to proactively keep our street trees healthy. So yeah, Sunnyvale has about 37,000 street trees, and the majority of the street tree trimming is contracted by the city during the summer months. On average, all of our trees, so your street tree, if you have one, is trimmed every 7 years on average. So during COVID, we cut back on tree trimming. We tightened our belt on a lot of the services that happened around the city, just trying to make sure that we're saving for a rainy day in case the financial recovery takes a lot longer, and we're still dealing with that recovery. But we restarted our tree trimming this year in a big way, and one of the things that I proposed and council supported was spending an additional $1.2 million to catch up on some of the tree trimming that we had postponed for the previous 2 years. So we're definitely trying to do that, and make our city safer. When you report that there are issues in your neighborhood, the arborist will come out, and if there's immediate work that needs to be done, if he evaluates that there are definite concerns, they will come out and immediately do that. So we have a minimal street crew that does tree trimming. But ultimately, it's like it often is added to the list of what that neighborhood is, and maybe it's prioritized a little bit higher than what it was before, but definitely it's added to kind of that overall going from neighborhood to neighborhood to deal with street trees. In other cities, actually, in talking about San Jose, it's actually the responsibility of the property owner to trim their street trees. So, like in San Jose, the street trees are maintained by that property owner, and they actually need to get a permit and then pay a tree maintenance company to come out. Definitely, if we actually have approved companies, if you want your tree trimmed immediately, you can always contract through one of our selected. You can contact Public Works and find out who the approved companies are, and that actually, they will, you can then pay for getting your street tree trimmed in a more timely fashion. Kenneth asked previously, do you know what's going into the old Wendy's building on Matilda? Yeah, it's planned to be a Taco Bell, and if you take a look at the front, you can kind of start seeing that starting to take shape, but definitely it will be a Taco Bell. And then Stephen asked what's going into the old McDonald's on El Camino, and that's planned to be an Indian restaurant. Renovations are underway, and it'll be more of a fast food from Madras Cafe. So it's right in front of Madras Cafe, which keeps expanding into the adjacent, stores. And so it's expanded. I actually ate there a few weeks ago and highlighted Madras, which is one of the, let's say, the Bay Area's most famous Indian restaurants, one of the top, the top 10, top 20 in the Bay Area. But they're actually, those owners are looking to do kind of a fast version as far as that's concerned. Let's see if we have any additional questions. Harry asks what's happening with the cleaning up of the trash and bubbly green water in the pond fountain at the Sunnyvale Community Center. So definitely that's continuing. So definitely the parks company or our parks staff goes out and deals with any trash in there. They clean that up usually every few weeks. If there is an issue, raise it as an Access Sunnyvale issue, and they'll send somebody out to deal with any trash. Ultimately, I think the construction for the community center starts at the beginning of next year, so they'll be reducing that big pool to about a third of what it currently stands, and reorient the fountain at the top next to the Sunnyvale Community Center and the senior center, and reorienting that, and then kind of making some more open space, some picnic tables, some playgrounds for the kids. So definitely the whole community center and the pond will be changing. Cynthia asks, so can we still eat the fruit? So yes, you can, although keep in mind that if fruit flies have laid larvae inside, you might end up opening up a piece of fruit and finding, sorry to say it, finding maggots inside. So definitely this is why it's seen as such a big pest and taken so seriously by Department of Agriculture, because it can really ruin a lot of crops, and figuring out, just being careful. It's like, being cognizant of, do you see any blemishes on your fruit, and then as you're cutting it open, figuring out that you might be a little surprised and being ready to react. So that's all the questions that I see now, or at least that Facebook allows me to see during this. But let me go ahead and wrap up. Thank you for joining me again this week. We live in interesting times, and new issues come up almost every day. Quarantine, for fruit being one of them this week. But I want you to, always to know that no matter what challenges we face, we face them together. I'm proud of Sunnyvale and how our residents have continued to respond to challenges over the last few years. And I'm just thankful to, be mayor for a city where people really care, really want to make a difference. They show their generosity, they show their kindness. Your actions and your attitude really do make a difference. Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community We're in this together, and we will get through this together. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.